All right, team, we are live in T-minus 60 seconds. Camera 2, confirm focus.
Confirmed. And testing audio. 1, 2, 3.
You've heard it a million times, right? Love is blind. The idea that when you fall for someone, you kind of stop seeing their flaws. But what if that whole idea is not just old-fashioned, but like completely backward? What if real, lasting love isn't blind at all? What if it's actually about seeing with crystal clear vision? That's what we're going to get into. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to really pick apart that old saying. Then we'll dive into this cool alternative idea called clairvoyant love and see how that connects to the rise of more rational relationships. And yeah, you know we have to talk about that wild reality TV experiment that put this whole thing on blast. We'll look at the pretty shocking results. And by the end, we'll figure out what it all means for us, how to choose to see clearly in our own love lives. All right, so let's start with the big one. The classic saying. For centuries, it's meant that love basically makes us ignore all our partner's imperfections. You know the feeling, right? That first amazing, intoxicating rush, that honeymoon phase where everything feels perfect and our brains are just kind of flooded with emotion. And look, it's a comforting idea, isn't it? It's like it gives us permission to just get totally swept off our feet. But here's the thing we've got to ask. Is that really love? Or is it just infatuation? Think about it. Does a real deep connection actually require you to ignore red flags, to shut down your own intuition, to just pretend you don't see some pretty obvious character flaws, all because the feelings are intense? That, right there, is the question we're really digging into today. I mean, this one little phrase has basically been the script for romance for forever. It's almost like a romantic hall pass, you know? It gives us this perfect excuse to overlook stuff that would normally make us go, wait a second. But what if that whole way of thinking is actually holding us back? What if it's stopping us from finding something deeper, something more real? What if it's getting in the way of the kind of emotional maturity that a lasting love actually needs? Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Let's flip the script. What if true love isn't blind at all? What if it's the exact opposite? What if it's clairvoyant? I love that word for this. The idea here is that real love isn't about ignoring who a person is. It's about seeing all of it, the good, the bad, the amazing, and yeah, the super frustrating parts too, and then making the choice to love them anyway. This completely reframes the whole thing, right? Clairvoyant love isn't about judging someone. It's about really seeing them. It's the ability to see what's called their infinite richness, their past, their quirks, their potential, without building up this fantasy version of them in your head. It's about a love that's grounded in reality, not some perfect ideal. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just huge. Blind infatuation, that's all about ignoring flaws and running from the messy parts of real life. But clairvoyant love, that's about acknowledging the imperfections and actually engaging with the real, flawed person right in front of you. It's basically the difference between loving an idea of someone and loving an actual, complex, whole human. Now, this whole idea of seeing clearly isn't just some random thought. It's actually part of a much bigger cultural shift we're seeing. It's this move towards what some people are calling rational love. And really, that's just the practical, boots-on-the-ground version of this clairvoyant mindset. And let's be clear, rational doesn't mean cold or robotic. It's not love without feelings, not at all. It's about mixing those powerful emotions with some conscious thought. It's about having the guts to ask the big questions. Hey, are our core values actually in sync? Do we want the same things down the road? It totally reframes love. It's not just this magical thing that happens to you. It's an active, ongoing choice that you make, fully aware, with your eyes wide open. And of course, you knew it was coming. You absolutely cannot talk about this topic today without bringing up the giant, worldwide experiment that basically put the whole Love is Blind theory on trial for all of us to see. I'm talking about the Netflix show Love is Blind. So the show kicks off back in 2020 with this totally wild premise, right? Can two people build a connection so deep, so real, that they'd agree to marry each other without ever laying eyes on one another? But man, the journey from that first season has been rocky, to say the least. There's been growing controversy and a lot of questions about how the show is actually made and the ethics behind it all. And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn, because First Show literally named Love is Blind, a show designed to prove that very idea. A lot of people would argue it's accidentally done the exact opposite. It's shown us that seeing clearly isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely essential. So let's just look at the data for a second. The the success rate for marriages from the show that actually last, it's around 26%. Now look, that's not awful. It's pretty much the same as other big dating shows like The Bachelor. But it's definitely not some magic bullet, is it? It kind of suggests that an emotional bond built in a bubble just isn't enough to handle the messiness of the real world. But then you have the really serious stuff, the behind-the-scenes issues. You have former contestants coming out with some pretty heavy allegations. They're painting this picture of an insane, high-pressure environment, one that sounds less like a quest for love and more like some kind of brutal endurance test. It's almost like the show itself was, ironically, blind to the problems in its own experiment. And this wasn't just talk. These allegations led to actual lawsuits, including a big class action one that ended with a preliminary settlement of $1.4 million. That's a lot. It's a pretty powerful reminder that even if you're trying to make a blind connection, the real-world context, how people are treated, that matters a lot. Okay, so where does all this leave us? What's the big takeaway here? It seems pretty clear that the strongest, most lasting kind of love isn't about shutting your eyes to what's real. It's actually about opening them wider than ever. It's all about our own growth, our emotional maturity, and having the wisdom to choose to see and love the entire, complicated, imperfect person who's right there with you. So what does that actually look like day to day? Well, it really boils down to a few key things. First, discernment. You gotta have the wisdom to tell the difference between a cute, harmless quirk and a real, flashing red flag. Then there's acceptance, truly loving the whole person. It's also seeing love as an act of choice you make every single day. It's committing to grow together, not just side by side. And maybe most important, it's making sure you're building all of this on a solid foundation of shared values. And look, moving on from Love is Blind isn't about being cynical or cheated. Not at all. It's a call for something better, a more mature, a stronger, a more conscious kind of love. One that's built on awareness and taking responsibility. So it really leaves us with one last big question to think about. In a world that is constantly selling us fairy tales and fantasies, what does it really mean to love with your eyes wide open?